Okay, so the Rebbe explained, we learned yesterday, um, that while there are reasons, logical reasons for why Hashem created the world, but ultimately the reason for Atzmos creating the world is because Nis'ave HaKodesh Baruch Hu. Hashem had a desire. And what is the proof the Rebbe discussed? How do we know that it's not um, that it's not for the reasons? Maybe it's just the reason. How do we know that it's Nis'ava Kodesh Baruch Hu, that there is more? Because if the reason was because of the reasons of the Eitz Chaim and the Zoyar to show Hashem's koyach and to begin the Yishtamoiden lay, he did not have to create Biyah, and certainly not Olam Hazeh Hagashmi. The fact that the Eibishter creates also this world and Biyah tells us that there is another reasons. Those reasons aren't sufficient. That is because of Nishave. Nisave. There must be a reason that there was a taiva, and a taiva you don't ask a question. So the Rebbe is going to say that that itself, the fact that we can prove nisave logically, so we're basically saying that we have evidence that Hashem desired. So we're saying that we have a logical proof that Hashem has a desire. That means that the idea of nisave is associated with our logic over here, that we can prove that Hashem desired. That itself makes it a connection to logic, because logic is what seichel is what proves to us that it was nisava. Let's look inside. The Eshloimar, the Rebbe says we can say, the fact that there is evidence logically about this idea that Hashem desired, which is Lamaila Mahatam. So the idea of Nisave means beyond reason. But we have a logical proof that Hashem wanted the world beyond a logical reason. V'shaychogahi mihishavus olam hazeh hatachten. And the proof is from Hashem's creating this lower world. Shein tachten lamata mimenu. That serves as the evidence that there is the idea of higher than Seichel, that there is the idea of Nesabahu. And so the Rebbe explains, Ki hishavus olam hazeh hatachten mizeh shenisave hoiso, because this creation, bringing about this our lower world, from Hashem desired, and from this desire there becomes a world. Hoiso, how did this take place? It's not like Hashem had a desire, and this desire remains in Atzmus, and then he has a separated, so from that desire there came about a world. So there's a disconnect between the desire and the world. Atzmus desired, and because of the desire, there was a world created. But he says, no, that desire came down into the world. The way the world, this physical world, came about from Nisaboy, so loy be'oifen. It's not in a way. The idea Hashem has this desire that remains in Atzmus. V'zeh shema inyan de nisave olam hazeh hatachten, and the fact that from this concept that Hashem desired, then it brought into being this physical world. Who boy from the Havdalah, it's not that it's separate. It's not that there is this Ave and there is a world Ella, but rather what happened here is so inyan de nishave nimshach b'ishavus the olam hazatach. That desire, Hashem brought that in, extended that in the creation of olam hazatach, in the creation of this world, that in this world there is Nisave. Nisave is not separate from the world, but it's part of the world. It's a part of this Olam Hazah. So that's why Olam Hazah, notwithstanding that the fact that it is Tachten, Ein Lamata Mimenu, provides evidence, that provides proof for the existence of Hashem's desire. The Rebbe gives the example now. Where do we see that it is higher than the place where it comes down, and yet it comes down over there? And that's the Rebbe brings the mashal of tainug by a person. The tainug of a person is beyond the powers of the person, and yet it extends into the physical lowest part of the person. The person has delight, has pleasure, while it's the most highest level of powers, of higher than the powers of the soul, but yet it expands even into the bones. When a person has a level of pleasure, as the story in the Gemara, he couldn't take off his shoe because his bones, actually, the density, the size of the bone grew. That means that tainug, while higher than all koiches, impacted the actual physical body, the lowest level. Val derech, this would be similar. Hatainug sheba odom, the delight by a person, which when we talk about tainug, this is similar to desire, the nisave. We talk about Hashem. Hashem had a yearning that is shayich l'tainug, that has a connection to the idea of tainug. So we're giving a mashal from tainug by a person because nisave is also connected to tainug. So what do we see by a person? The hagam sha tainug hu l'maylo mikol hakoiches, even though tainug is higher than all the powers, and l'maylo gam merotzin, it's even higher than the level of rotzin, because, as explained in Chassidus, that tainug is the reason for rotzin. It is higher than rotzin. That's why the person has a rotzin, because of tainug. Nevertheless, notwithstanding that it's higher than all the koiches, mikomoko, nevertheless, and that's actually for that reason, because it's higher, who nimshach b'chol koiches hanefesh, it extends into all powers of the soul, v'gam beivore haguf, it also extends to the limbs of the body. V'ad shahamerchav dehatanug, that wideness of the delight, nimshach umispashet, it extends and expounds, the light extends and expound and spreads out. Gam behoatmus ba'atzomos sheberegel, also on the bones of the foot, as we say in the pasuk Shmua Toiva Tedashin Etzem, brought down in the Gemara, that good news fattens up the bone. So that's the tainuk. They told him that he was a king. He couldn't take off his shoe because his bone physically became bigger, wider. That means that the merchav of tainuk comes down into the bone. So the same thing is a marshal that the Nisava Kodesh Baruch Hu, which is in Atzmus, comes down all the ways into the creation of Olam Hazatach. The Lochein. So now we understand that this world, this low world, because it has the Nisava in it, proves and provides evidence for Nisava. That means that you can tell within the world Nisave, that logical conclusion, because or else why did Hashem create Olam Hazeh? So that conclusion in itself is the idea that the Atzmo, the Nisave is here in this world. Velochein, hishavus the Olam Hazeh, hatachtin Atzmo. Therefore, the creation of this lower, our lower world itself. The fact that there was created a lower world, that there is nothing lower than it, that proves the concept, the idea of nisava. And the Rebbe is going to explain add now that why does the world created in such a way that the nisave should be in the world is so that the world itself should have some connection to the atzmus, that it's going to come down. That's why in the world also there is, in the creation of the world, there is the connection to the nishave, so that world itself should have some sort of relationship to the nisave, to the dira that is coming from the nisave. Ulohoisik, the Rebbe adds, this alone, that the creation of this lower world, it was in a way that the idea of nisava extended into his havus. Like we said, it wasn't just that nisave and separate was his havus, but the nisave extends in the creation. Why is that so? Why is it who? Ki bichdei shetushlam hakavone the dire betachtonim. In order to fulfill that the intent of the dire betachtonim should be fulfilled, so we can only fulfill it if we have some connection already from us uh to be a dira. Shatachtoinim yiu dira la'atzmusoi mitzad inyan atachtoinim gufa, so that the lower should be a dwelling place for atzmus, has to come from within their self, from the tachten, so that the tachten becomes a dira. We don't want to force it on from above. We want the tachten to become a dira. The tachten should become the place where nisave, which for Hashem, for the atzmus. So we need to create, we need to have that the tachten has some connection. That's when, then that is how they can become the dira for the atzmus. Tzorich shetia lohem ezu shaychus lo atzmus. They must have some connection to the atzmus. Oid lifnei shenasim dira. Even before they become the dira, that it's nimshach there, but they need to have some sort of a connection. What is that connection? That they were created in a way that in the world itself should be nisaba. V'lochein ha'ishavus the olam hazeh hatachten mizesh nisaba. So therefore, there is this lower world that it was created from the nisave, from the desire. It was in a way that in the world itself be sabusay. just by his creation, before making it a dira lo yisbarach through our avodah. But by creation, lechatchila, the Eibishter created in a way, Ava Kodesh Baruch Hu. So before we can make his dira, we have to have a shaykhis to make a dira for Atzmus. So in the creation, it was Yiyah Ha'inyan Denis Ava Rotzon Atzmus, that the world itself, there should be the idea of Nisave Rotzon Atzmus. The Rotzon of the Atzmus should be in the world even before we make that dira. And that is why the proof, the evidence for Nisave is from the world, because the world already inherently has the Rotzon Atzmus in it, and that's the way the Eibishter created. Again, these are very refined, and we're just going through to understand a little bit the simple level, but this requires a lot of reflection and a lot of discussion, but just to understand what the Rebbe is trying to say here, the words of what he's trying to say. But the Rebbe explains now, this will give us an understanding in the Maimer, that the Maimer is out to tell us in the Bosi Legani how we need avoida davke to bring down the dira. We need to work at it. And then, so how does he explain it? He explains it that Nisava Kodesh Baruch Hu dira betachtoinim, because Hashem wants it, not uh, if we need to work at it. And here it says Eibishter wants it. How do we explain that it's our avodah? But the way the Rebbe explained it now, that Nisaba Kodesh Baruch Hu gives the Tachtoinim the connection so that their avodah can connect. Let's see inside. So based on this idea, we can explain that it says in the Maimer, the hatam al zeh she'iker shchina betachtoinim hoiso. And what's the reason? Explaining Bosi Legani iker shchina betachtoinim. So why was the iker shchina betachtoinim? So he explains kinis ava kodesh baruch hu liyis lo yizbarach dira betachtoinim, because Hashem wants a dira betachtoinim. That seems to almost contradict the whole idea of tachtoinim. The idea of tachtoinim is that we should make a place where it's tachten to make a dira for Hashem. And here we're saying, why is Hashem over here? Because that's what Hashem wants. Because Iker Shechina Betachtoinim is because Hashem wants the Shechina. The Lechaira, Api Habiyur Maimer, based on what the Maimer explains. That the fact that the Eibishter wants a dira b'tachtoinim, wants low, shagila lekus lemato. That why does he want the tachtoinim? He wants that how godliness should be revealed below. Dira b'tachtoinim. That's what the Eibishter wants. But how does he want it? The Eibishter doesn't want a gilu in this world to come from above. Not to come through bringing it down from below above. That the way the dira is made is the work of the person. That's how we bring down the dira. That's what the Maimer explains. So he explaining the Iker Shchina is Eicha Inyan de Nisave Chulu Dira B'Tachtoinim. So how is the idea? Hashem wanted a Dira B'Tachtoinim who al tam al zed. So that becomes the reason Shabbatchilas Habriya. Now you're saying in the beginning of the creation, Lifnei Shoyso Avodas Adam. That was before the person worked. That was Iker Shechina was in the beginning. So how do we explain if Dire betachtonim means that we have to work over here. But here, the explanation by the Ika Shechina betachtonim also was before there was work, before there was an Odom. That was way before. So why would the Shechina be betachtonim? There was no people then. There was no Odom. Shechina. We're explaining that the main thing is that Tachtonim was, so we work at it. But here you're saying, no, the Shechina was the Chatchila here, before there was work. Because in the Saba Kodesh Baruch Hu listed dir b'Tachtonim. That seems to go against the idea that it's the Tachtonim that need to make the Dira for Hashem, not that it comes from Hashem. So the Rebbe explains, but that's the point that we said, that in this Ave v'yeshleimar habir b'zeh, we can say the explanation of this. The zeh she'iker shchina betachtoinim hoysu b'tchilas habriya. So this, that the main shchina was in the beginning of the creation. There was no Odom, there was no Avodah, there was no Iskafiyas, Hapka, there was no tachtoinim over there. So why was the shchina then betachtoinim hoysu? Ushatachtoinim oilam haza tachten hoysa ba'oifen sho inyan the nishave nimshach b'hisavus shaloi kanal. That was because the way this lower oilam haza was created, it was in such a way that the idea of nisave came down in his creation. So in other words, that within the tachten itself, it was recognized, it was felt that nisave. Sha'al yidei zeh nase boy ha'achshore. That through this, through that nisave, HaKadosh Baruch Hu dir b'tachtoinim, that provided the preparation, made it ready. Sha'al yidei ha'avodas ha'odam yiyadir la'atzmus. That when the person works, it will be a dira to the atzmus, gam mitzad inyonei dehoilum, also because of the tachta, because of the world. So basically, even before a yid does the dira b'tachtoinim through his avoida, which is the ultimate pshat of tachtoinim hoiso, is the avoidas adam, there was the preparation for that work was by Nisava Kodesh Baruch Hu, which Hashem put into the creation, that the world, Olam Hazeh, should be a proper vehicle, a vessel, and have a connection, so that then the world, mitzad its connection that it got from the Chatchila before Avodas Odom, made it that the Atzma should be here also, that the world itself should say and make it become a dira lo yizbarech because of this nisave. So therefore, take in the beginning there wasn't the tachtoinim's actual avoida, but it was the hachshore that the Eibishter brought down into the extended into the world, that the world itself is prepared. V'yesh leimar, and the Rebbe says further. So what does it mean? Now we understand, we can say, when the world, through the sin that it left, it means that the world did not have that nisave, that hachshore, that preparation that it has. And it left, it means, because here we're talking about the nisave created that the world should have the idea of nisave in the world itself. But a sin took away that nisave, v'yeshleimar. And we can say, Dezehu shal yidei hachatoyim nistalko iker shchina. This is that through the sins, the main shchina left. Kiki von shechet, hu hepech horotzin v'atainug de l'maylo. Since a sin is opposite of the will, and the delight of the of above. Lochein al yidei hachatoyim nistalko iker shchina me'oretz, and that's why through the chatoyim the main shchina left. Why? Sheloi hoyo boy. The world no longer had nisave, that special desire in the world for the world. It no longer existed. Why? Because there was sins there. So the world did not allow for that nisave because of its chait, and the chait is opposite of nisave. So it's not that there was a sin that pushed away the gilui. It took away the nisave. It took away that special desire which made the world into a vessel. The world itself shouldn't want the atzmus. It was no longer nisabeh. So now, what takes place later on when we bring it down in the world? What does Moshe accomplish? He does on two inyanim. First, we have to make the world back into a place of nisabeh, and then we have to actually make the dira. So there's two things that are happening here. First of all is hamshochas iker shchina lamata, to bring down the main shchina lamata, meaning to bring back the nisave. Bosi legani lemokim shoyikri bitchilo. I've come to the garden, to my place where I was in the beginning. Shal yidei zen nasa olam muchshar liyastir lo yizbarich. That way, the world became fitting place to become a dira lo yizbarich. That's the first thing, to prepare the world. Like it was in the beginning of Nisave, that we had that rotzen in the world. The noise of Lozeh, in addition to that, Hachshore Hamshocha, to prepare it, Al Yidei HaAvoido, the Vasuli Migdosh, through the Voido Vasuli Migdosh, Nase Gam Ha'olam Direlo Yisborich, so the world also became a dira to Hashem. Then they actually prepared to come to Shenimshach Boy, Mishkan by Yod V'Chol, that extends into the world, first in the Mishkan, and through the Mishkan in the whole world, Gilu Elikus, the revelation of godliness. So here, the Rebbe explained basically that there's two processes. There is the Dira Lo Yizborech B'Tachtonim that takes place through the Avodah that the Yid does, as the Maimer explains, through his kafiyas, through his hapcha. That's the way you bring down the Dira for Atzmus. But to begin with, this world has already a connection to Atzmus, because Nisava Kodesh Baruch Hu Liyis Leis Baruch. And that level of Nisava is a level that comes down into the world, and that the world becomes a place, a mokim muksha, for the Nisava. The sins that took place took away that hachshore, because there's no more tainug over there. It's against the will of Hashem. There's no Nisava over there. So therefore, when Moshe Rabbeinu brings down to the world, to the Mishkan, to the world, he brings down the two levels. First, he brings down to the world the Nisave, that the world should be a proper place when we brought it back, so that later on, when we'll do the Avodah, it should become the Dira Lo Yizbarach. Okay, let's leave it over here, and then we'll be
Okay.
Mamshech on Sunday. Okay.
See you later. Bye bye.